Hi, we're so glad that you found this Peak City message today. Our prayer is that during our time together that you would discover Jesus and be encouraged to follow him fearlessly.
Come on, Peak City, let's celebrate, man. God has never failed us, man. Can we all just pray and thank God for that right now? Bow your heads, man. Let's just talk to God like he's right here in the room, in this room with us, because he is. He's right here. God, we love you, and we trust you, and we thank you that in every mountaintop and in every valley, you have never left our side. You've been with us through thick and thin. God, you are always there with us, and you have never failed us. God, I know people in this room have been through all kinds of dark seasons, and even in the dark seasons, you've never failed us. You've been there with us. And so, God, right now, I know in this room that your work is not even close to being done in our lives. God, there are people in this room right now, there are people watching online who need to see you clearly, who need to hear about your love. God, I pray in our time together that they would see it, that they would see how much you love them, and that it would change their life forever. God, we celebrating baptisms today. All of heaven's gonna be going nuts because people are giving their lives to you and going public with it. God, it's gonna be a good day, but God, I also know that even for those of us that have been following you for years, that you wanna speak something fresh to us today. You wanna change our hearts from the inside out. And so right now, everyone take a big deep breath, still heads bowed, eyes closed. Take a big deep breath. Jesus, we open our hearts to you. We open our minds to you. Do something in us today. We ain't here to play church, God. We're here because we need it from you. We need life change from you. And it can only happen by the power of your Spirit. And I know you're here. I know you're in this room. And I know you're going to work. God, we pray this with great expectation, great anticipation. And all of God's people said together, amen, amen. What's good, Peak City? Heck yeah, man. So good to be with you for our very first 10 a.m. service. Let's give it up for all people watching online with us that decided to stay in and not brave the barely bit of snow-covered roads. No, I'm kidding. We're glad you're here. Shout out to all y'all for showing up, man. We're thrilled to have you. I got a message today for you that I cannot wait to bring to you from John chapter 18. It's a message for anybody that feels like you take 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. Do you ever feel like that in your life? Do you ever feel like you're making progress in one area of your life, but you're actually taking steps back in a different area of your life? Like you're hot and cold, you're up and down, you're Jekyll and Hyde. Does anybody ever feel inconsistent? I got a message for you from John 18, and the title of this message is The Truth About Consistency. We're going to get honest about consistency, and we're going to let God grow something in us today through that. So, man, let's not waste any time. Why don't you turn around and welcome some people, give some hugs, give some high fives. Tell them you look good at 10 a.m. Tell them you look good at 10 a.m. So good, man. Thank you, Joe. My man. Woo! Here we go, guys. I'm excited. We had 7 people that got baptized last service. We got several in this service. We got several in the next service. It's Peak City's first Sunday with 3 services on a Sunday morning, and it's happening. So thank you for being a flexible, nimble church that's just ready for whatever it takes, man. I love that about you. I love that this church is not like a cruise ship. It ain't going to take us forever to turn and shift and change. We'll do whatever it takes to reach people, and that's because of you all. So thank you for that. And I know there's some football game on today. How many of y'all are going for the Chiefs by show of hands? How many of y'all are going for the Niners by show of hands? How many of y'all are just here for the snacks, commercials, and USHERRAYMOND? I told Brittany, you know you're getting old when the Super Bowl halftime show is catering to you by playing the people that were rocking at like the middle school dance back in the day. You know? You got to let it burn. It's going to be a good day though, man. Good day. One thing to put on your radar announcement-wise, we got a worship night coming up March 10th. If you've never been to a worship night at Peak City, man, you got to get here for this. It's a special time, 6 p.m. on a Sunday night. We just come together, and there really is no agenda other than just to love Jesus. and to tell Jesus, thank you for all you've done in our lives. And I'm telling you, God shows up on these nights. When we don't have a plan other than to just say, God, we love you, God changes us from the inside out. And so do not miss it, man. Be here for it. It's going to get our hearts ready for Easter, y'all. Easter is just like a few weeks away. I know it's crazy. Easter's early this year. It's like March 31st is Easter this year. So we're going to get ready for it on that worship night. So be here, be here, be here. Today I want to preach to you about consistency. Consistency. The truth about consistency. You know, consistency, it's like, it's funny because like, it's a word that we all know we desperately need. Like no one's out there advocating for inconsistency, right? Like we know that the fruits of inconsistency are bad. Like if you are inconsistent at your work, if you inconsistently show up to work, you are going to get fired. That is like just what's going to happen. If you are inconsistent in a dating relationship, you know, if you're like inconsistently communicating, she gonna dump you. It's just gonna happen, right? If you're inconsistent in the gym, you're not gonna make the gains. If you're inconsistent with your diet, you're not gonna lose the pounds. Like we know the importance of consistency. Nobody's advocating for inconsistency. I love how John Maxwell puts it, very famous leadership quote that you've probably heard before. He says, successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do occasionally. Right? The successful people in our world, they consistently show up. We all know the importance of consistency, but here's what I want to do today. And if you have a Bible and you want to get there, we're going to be in John chapter 18. I want to talk to you. I want to get honest about consistency. I think it's really important for us to be honest about it. You know, that's like one of our values here is that we're trying to be a church that's raw. We are vulnerable and transparent. We ain't trying to pretend. None of y'all showed up today. I hope you're not worried that people in the church are looking around and noticing you or what you're wearing or anything. Like, that's not this kind of church. This is not a Sunday best kind of church. Like, we're all just glad we made it this morning, right? We're all just glad we got out of bed and got the kids and got here. Like, we're glad we showed up. Nobody's judging anybody else. And so because of that, and because of what Jesus has done for us on the cross, we can be raw and transparent. We don't have to fake it, all right? So what I want to do today with consistency and where Jesus is going to take us in John chapter 18, I just want you to be honest about it. I want you to be honest about it. I think if you be honest about consistency and the lack thereof in your life, I believe that God wants to do something special in your life. And I believe that some of you, through this, God can lead you to new levels of consistency. That there's some people in this room and watching online who have been struggling with the same sins for 10, 15 years. And you're great in some areas of your life, but there's this one area of your life that you've never been able to conquer and overcome. And I'm telling you, if you will put what we were teaching today, put the words of Jesus into practice in your life, he will lead you to new levels of consistency and conquering the sin that has had you by its grip for years. But then I know there's also people here who are new to faith, new to church, and I think if you'll get honest about consistency, I think that today might be the day that God changes your life forever as we tackle this topic. The truth about consistency. John chapter 18, we're going to start in verse 10. Peak City, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, let's go. John 18. For the next 5 weeks, I'm going to be teaching on the last 12 hours of the life of Jesus. Okay, in these last 12 hours, so much happens. And there's so much that we really need to unpack. It's really easy in these last 12 hours of his life to just speed through it. But we really need to slow down and really take our time through this over these next 5 weeks. And today, we start with Jesus being arrested. We start right where Josh left off a couple weeks ago when he was preaching up here. And Jesus is being arrested, but in verse 10, one of his OG disciples steps up. One of his OG disciples steps up and comes to his defense. John chapter 18, verse 10, it says, then Simon Peter, who had a sword, he drew it and he struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. He went Mike Tyson on it. He said, I'm taking your ear. It's such an odd thing. Like if you're going to defend someone, like to me it's either like he had bad aim or he wasn't really serious about this, but he just wanted to like puff his chest out. Like who cuts off an ear? This is such a strange miscue, it seems. But you can tell he's trying to defend. I mean, his rabbi, his Lord, his master is being arrested. If you're unfamiliar with the story, Jesus is being arrested, though he's done nothing wrong. The religious leaders in his day were just threatened by his power, threatened by his following, and they really just wanted him dead. He's done nothing wrong, but he's being arrested. So Peter comes to his defense, but Jesus commands Peter. He says, chill out, calm down. Peter, this is why we cannot have nice things. He says, put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials, they arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. The other disciple, by the way, is John, the one who wrote this gospel that we're reading. And because this disciple, John, was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. He had some connections. He had some hookups. He knew the right people. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. And now the other disciple who was known to the high priest, he came back. He spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and he brought Peter in. She stopped him, though. She said, you aren't one of this man Jesus' disciples, too, are you? She asked Peter. And he replied, I am not. Now it's cold. And the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. And Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. Now, if you skip down to verse 25, you kind of see the conclusion of this episode here. It resumes where we left off in verse 18. Verse 25 says, meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself. And so they asked him again, you aren't one of his disciples too, are you? And again, he denied it, saying, I am not. Then one of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, it was like Malchus's cousin or something. He challenged him. He says, didn't I see you with him in the garden? Didn't I see you cut my cousin's ear off? I'm pretty sure you're that dude. And again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. And if you're familiar with the narrative, Jesus in a previous chapter had said, Peter comes out and says, I'll never deny you. Jesus says, no, you're going to deny me 3 times. And when it happens, a rooster's going to crow to remind you of what I've said. And so Peter here denies Jesus, denies even knowing him. And a rooster crows, and he's reminded, and he realizes he's in the middle of one of the greatest failures of his life. Isn't it so interesting? With Peter, we see so much about consistency, or a lack thereof. It's like in one, literally, we're 8 verses. In the midst of 8 verses, he goes from cutting off a dude's ear to defend Jesus. I'll do anything for you, Jesus. And literally within an hour, he's standing in front of someone and they say, aren't you one of his people? No, not me. And he lies out of self-preservation. It's like, brave Peter and cowardly Peter. And this is kind of a theme for Peter's life. This is Peter. If you're not familiar with the story, this is Peter who, stepped out of the boat and walked on water. He saw Jesus walking on water and said, Lord, tell me I can do the same. He says, you can do the same. Brave Peter steps out the boat and walks on water. Then he sees a storm coming and he gets scared and shakes in his boots and he sinks. Cowardly Peter. This is the same Peter who, is standing around with the disciples, and Jesus says, who do people say that I am? And he says, well, some people say you're a prophet. Some people say you're a good man. Some people, they have all these opinions. He goes, but I say you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then within a few verses later, he goes, now Jesus, though, about forgiveness. Do we really have to forgive people? Like, how many times? Like, at some point, this has to stop, right? Brave Peter, cowardly Peter, holy Peter, sinful Peter, consistently inconsistent, Jekyll and Hyde, hot and cold, up and down. Oh my gosh, he's just all over the place. He can't figure out who he is. Consistently inconsistent. And here's the deal. It's easy to poke fun at Peter. It's easy to look at him and go, well, yeah, consistently inconsistent. My gosh, who is this guy? It's easy to. His biggest mistakes are recorded in historical document for people to read 2,000 years later. You better hope that none of your mistakes end up in history books for people to read 2,000 years later. His are. But come on, let's get honest today. Let's be honest about consistency, okay? Because the truth is, it's easy to poke fun at Peter. It's easy to look at his mistakes. But you know this deep down at your core, you and I are no difference. Up and down, hot and cold, left and right, Jekyll and Hyde, who you gonna be today? Come on, just get honest about it. Even the most consistent people in this room are inconsistent in some area of your life. Consistent in the gym, inconsistent in your marriage, consistent at work, inconsistent in your parenting. Holy inside the church, lifting your hands in worship, and struggling to not lift a finger in the parking lot to somebody as you leave, like, oh my gosh, do not cut me off. You said I do to your spouse, and you're like, I'm going to love them, I'm going to sacrifice for them. Oh man, I'll do anything for them. I love them so much. But I swear, if they ask me when we are already in bed to go and see if the garage door is shut, not that that's happened to us before. Like, you have legs. If you're worried about it, go see. I don't know. Like, which is it? You going to love them, or are you going to sacrifice for them? Like, what's it going to be? Consistently inconsistent. My wife and I just got away for a few weeks. Not a few weeks, a few days. Gosh, I wish it was a few weeks. Lord have mercy. A few days to celebrate our 17-year wedding anniversary. And thank you, appreciate that. We celebrate every year like it's a big one, because every year is a big one, okay? Y'all know marriage is hard. And every year that you can stay married and stay in love, it's a year to celebrate. And so we got away for a couple days. And the best part about being away from our kids was, at least like the G-rated parts, was just being away from the kids, okay? The best part is, like, you don't wake up and you got kids clawing all over you. Like, you have nothing to fix. It's just like, oh my gosh, we get to sleep in and no one needs us. This is fantastic. And it's so funny because, like, after the second day, we're about to come home. And, like, in my mind and in my soul, I just felt the Lord saying, you need to go back and be a more patient parent. And I told Brittany, oh man, we're so rested. We've slept for more than 7 hours in a night. It's going to be great. I'm going to be the most patient dad in the world. Oh, it's going to be great. Oh, I can just feel the Lord leading me to this patient parenting. And I get home, and our first morning back, within 1 hour of waking up, I had cleaned up a glass of spilled milk. I'd fixed an Xbox controller, fixed our internet, worked with a kid on his homework, all this stuff. Kids are crying, they're hitting each other, blood is flying everywhere. And at some point you just go, and I kind of snapped. I'm like, you guys are autonomous humans. Figure your life out. And the Lord's like, what's it going to be? Patient parent or impatient? Which one are you going to be? Because you say on one hand you want to do this, but then when it comes down to it, you don't. Like, what's it going to be? Consistently inconsistent. And here's the deal. It's easy to point to these little small areas of our life where we have inconsistencies. It was funny because I was, this past week I was talking to a friend of mine who is seriously the most consistent person I've ever known. He's consistent in fitness, nutrition, lifting, strength training, his business, like everything about him is so disciplined. And I said, man, like, how does a message like this hit you? Because, I mean, you're like the most consistent guy. And he goes, oh, you're crazy. I'm consistent in like 5 areas of my life. The other 20 I need to grow in. Like, even the most consistent of us can find areas where we are not. But here's the truth. Sometimes it's in little areas, but other times it's in really big areas of our life. And many of us in this room, myself included, know that some of the biggest mistakes you have ever made in your life were not a representation of who you want to be. Some of the things that have left you plagued with the most regrets, they do not represent your values, they do not represent your convictions, they do not go in the flow of who you want to be, and yet you still did it. And some of you, it took away your sobriety, it took away a marriage, it lost you a job, it cost you time with your kids. I mean, it cost you a dream, a career, a calling. Sometimes it's little areas, sometimes it's big areas, and either way, we just got to get honest about it, right? We just got to get honest about this. We have to understand, and this is the truth about consistency. This is a two-part truth, but I want to give you the first part. The truth about consistency is simply this. We aren't. We're not. And we just got to embrace that. Like at a soul level. Like, come on, let's cut through the religious crap for a second, and let's just be honest. At a soul level, we are plagued with inconsistency. Paul would say, I know the right thing to do, but I don't do it. And the wrong thing to do, I know I shouldn't do, but I want to do it. The man who planted churches and spurred the Christian movement on throughout the world said, oh yeah, consistently inconsistent. The problem, the truth about consistency is that we aren't. We aren't. And this is so problematic. This is so, if you really take this and really apply it to the depths of your soul, it's so problematic to understand that whether you grew up in church or this is your first time in church, all of our souls are plagued with the same inconsistency. It's so problematic because there are things about life that you now have to take into account. If you are plagued with inconsistency at a soul level, and without a remedy, without an aid, there's nothing you can do about it. It means that you cannot predict the outcome of your life. Do you understand how terrifying that is? You can't trust yourself. If your soul is plagued with inconsistency, you can't guarantee where you're going to go. Your future is going to be plagued with anxiety because you can't trust yourself. As one of my mentors says, and I quote it all the time to myself, I quote it all the time in sermons too, we are always 2 decisions away from stupid. And some of y'all in this room know that's true more than others. We're always it don't matter how high you've risen in leadership, it don't matter what your influence is, it don't matter how set you think you are always 2 decisions away from stupid. The plague of inconsistency. It means that you can't predict the outcome of your life, but not only that. Think about this. It's so problematic. Because if our souls are inconsistent, it means that you are going to have regrets, guilt, and shame no matter what. Because friends, I know we're here like, y'all the real ones. Y'all the ones that came out on like icy road conditions when everyone was going to stay home. It's like first time, you're the first 10 a.m. service. You came out to be encouraged. And I came here today to tell you, you're probably going to screw up your life. You're going to do something. You're going to rack up regret. Because your soul is plagued with inconsistency, you are not going to be in every circumstance the person that you want to be. You will actually violate your own values. You will violate your own ethics. You will. And so because of that, regret and shame are going to be lifelong companions unless you find a cure. And I came today to tell you that there is a cure, that there is hope to be found. That yes, the problem with consistency, the truth about consistency is that you are. There's no way out of it. Your soul is consistently inconsistent. It's something you can't get over in your life. It's part of how your soul is wired. But I came today to tell you that there is hope, there is an answer, and his name is Jesus. That in Jesus, you actually have a cure, an ailment for the one thing that your soul cannot escape, and that is the plague of inconsistency. And I want you to see it with me in Scripture. I want you to see it, because sandwiched in between our 2 passages, okay? If you're in John 18, it's like John wrote this so intentionally, because he has at the beginning Peter's inconsistency. Hot, cold, up, down, faithful, unfaithful, holy, sinful. And then at the end, he has more of it. Right? Peter's full denials where the rooster crows, right? Like you have the sandwich right in between them. Right in between them. We have pictures of inconsistency on the outside, and then if you look right in the middle of verse 19, we see a perfect picture of consistency, and it's found in Jesus. Look with me at verse 19. He says, meanwhile, while Peter's out there being inconsistent, while Peter's up and down, hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde, meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. And Jesus says, I have spoke openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always, everybody say always. I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. So why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. And when Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Slapped the God who created the heavens and the earth and everything in it. Slapped him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest, he demanded? Jesus, unfazed, unshaken, consistent. He says, if I said something wrong, Jesus replied, then testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, then why did you strike me? And then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. It's as if John is contrasting the two. You have the inconsistencies of Peter. Even though he's not the one being tried, he's not the one in trouble, He's not the one about to go to the cross, but then you have this little narrative right in the middle that says, while Peter is inconsistent, while you and I are inconsistent, we have a picture of Jesus who, under the most pressure, in the moment when he was at his worst, when he has impending death, I mean, he's about to be beaten, he's about to be crucified, he's getting slapped in the face like he's a common criminal. He is under the most pressure, and what do we see? We see him standing firm and strong and unshaken and consistent. All the time. He says, I preach the same message everywhere I went, that I was always saying the same thing. I never did anything in hiding. I am consistent. I'm telling you. The truth about consistency is that we aren't, but Jesus is. We aren't. We're up and down. We're hot and cold. We're left and right. We're lukewarm, then we're hot, then we're cold. We can't figure it out. But Jesus. He is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, as the book of Hebrews tells us. Jesus. Though the flowers may fade, though the grass may wither, the word of the Lord will stand forever. He will be unchanged. He will be unshaken. And here's the deal. Your soul was meant to cling. Your inconsistent soul was actually created to cling to the one who is consistent. The plague that you can't get past, you'll actually never get past it. Because the way God made your soul was to be in complete and total dependence on the one who is consistent. I was thinking about this week, and I thought, man, I had this image in my mind of a specific outdoor sport in Colorado. How many of you, by show of hands, have ever done slacklining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's in the whole church, there's 12 people that have ever heard of this, okay? But if you don't know, slacklining, usually it's tied between two trees, right? Like you see it in a park, and it's this big, long deal, and it's really hard to balance on. The goal is to train yourself to a place of balance. And so this thing up top, this is actually not... This is actually frowned upon in the slackline community. Okay, I found this out. I asked them, hey, what's that thing up top called? And my buddy here at the church, Reagan, he's right here somewhere, who's big slackliner. He was like, we don't call it anything because we don't think you should ever use it. But the only word I could find for it that the slackline community would call it is a top line. And the top line is supposed to help you train, right? But you're not supposed to use it. But I'm telling you, this looks easy. It is not easy. It is balance. It is core strength. It is hard. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. I can't make it halfway across yet. And you're like, man, he's really bad at this. You would be too. And I just thought, man, isn't this such a great analogy of what our souls are like? Shaky, inconsistent. Oh man, I think I've got it, and then I fall off. I think I'm crushing it. I think, man, just when I might get across, just when I might beat that thing, beat that sin, oh no, I can't get it. It's oh man, our souls are that shaky. If you just get honest about it, right? Just get honest. And now what's funny is, with slackliners, their goal is to grow, obviously. It's a sport, you're supposed to grow in it. And so you're supposed to get to a place where you can do this without the top line. But even further than that, some psychos will get to the place where they do this thing called highlining, okay? Highlining is when you're going across a stupid canyon. At this point, when you're doing this, you just don't value life anymore. Just call it what it is. You're kind of ready to be done. You're ready for heaven. It's all good. What are we doing here, Harry? He's tied to a leash. It's got a harness on. He could fall and die. What are we doing? This is the goal, right? And it's funny is, with slacklining, if you really take the analogy, the analogy actually is not good. The slacklining community is not going to like my analogy. Because I think it's funny. We think that we're supposed to get to this place that in our own strength, we're able to navigate this life. And we feel really bad about ourselves when we fall. Or what's even worse is when we fall, we hide it, right? It's just as long as nobody can know about it. And so we think we can get to this place where we'll graduate to this. And that's where the illustration falls miserably short. And that's where I need to tell you what I really was going to title this sermon is not the truth about consistency. What the real title of it was going to be is we all suck at slacklining. Because here's the deal. Here's what falls short. You were always meant to. If your soul's like a slack line, you were always meant to hold on to the top line. You were never meant to let go of this. That as you grow and as you mature, you actually don't get stronger in and of yourself. You get stronger and more focused on your dependency on God. And that you have this great top line, this consistent Jesus, that when your work is going crazy, you hold on to Jesus. When your disciplines are out of whack, instead of trying to fix it in your own strength, you hold on to Jesus. You say, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you to help and to grow me in this, right? You cling to Jesus. You cling to Jesus. And this is actually the only cure that your soul has. The inconsistency that your soul is plagued with, it'll never go away. You were never meant to let go of this. You were always meant to cling over and over to the rock of ages, the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. And I'm telling you, if you would do this, if you would find the area of your life where you're the most inconsistent, I guarantee you what you would find is that you are not holding on to the top line. What I've found in my life is that the greatest areas of inconsistency are always because I'm failing at this. The lack of consistency is always tied to a lack of dependency. When you aren't consistent in your marriage, it's because you're not depending on the sacrificial love of Jesus. It's because you're going straight into that argument and you're not saying, hey, stop. I need to go on a walk and pray first. I need God to fill me up with some love before we have this. I need some wisdom first. Or it's because you're not saying, hey, can we stop fighting? Can we just hold hands and pray for a second? And ask God to fill us with the love we need to forgive each other right now. It's because you are not dependent. It's because you're trying to figure out on your own. Some of you are, I'm gonna get real specific, and I know how the Spirit of God works. It's gonna hit somebody in this room. Some of y'all have been trying to quit drinking for years, or some of you have convinced yourself that you're not alcoholics. But you know deep down that every single night you have to have a drink before you go to bed. Just so you know, that's the classic signs of an alcoholic. And you've told yourself, I'm going to stop drinking so much. I actually just counseled a guy recently who said that every time he goes on vacation with his family, he gets blackout drunk and he says things that he regrets, and it always causes pain in his family. And he goes, and I hate it. Like, that's not who I want to be. And I say, okay, well, when you go on vacation, what are you doing? Are you clinging to Jesus? Are you saying, Jesus, I'm going on vacation. I know normally I should just let loose, but I need your Spirit to give me self-control. I need your Spirit to guide me through this. I want to rest in you, not rest in the bottle. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. You go on vacation, it's like, no, I'm not reading my Bible. I'm not praying. What are you talking about? I'm on vacation. But you end up racking up regrets in your life and doing things that don't reflect who you really want to be. It's like some of y'all, you hate your workplace so much, and your coworkers are driving you nuts, and you're thinking about career changes and all that. You know what the truth is? You've not prayed for your coworkers once. And when you're getting frustrated, you're just lashing out at them instead of stopping and saying, hey, instead of going out with my buddies at lunch, I'm going to go with Jesus and spend some time in his word. I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask him to give me what I need to stay faithful to this job and to love these people and to be the ambassador of hope that he wants me to be. A lack of consistency, it is always, always, always tied to a lack of dependency. You weren't created to walk this alone. You weren't created to master it. You were created to get to a place of complete dependency. And I know that for some of you, you go, but Petie, I thought we were supposed to grow. I thought we were supposed to come strong as followers of Jesus. Yeah. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. Paul said, I work hard. I toil and struggle for the sake of the mission with the power that God works within me. The Christian faith, come on, just ask somebody in the lobby afterwards. Go find somebody in this church that looks old. And ask them how they did it. Ask them how they stayed faithful to Jesus all these years. Ask them what they've learned. And I'm telling you, they will say, the older I get, the less I know. All I know is I need Jesus. All I know is I got to stay close to Jesus. I got to stay near to Jesus. I got to stay near to Jesus. It's like the verse back in the Old Testament in Joshua. And Joshua had been through so much. He led the nation of Israel through so much, so many ups and downs. And I love how it says this in verse 23, or verse 8 of chapter 23. But you are to hold fast to the Lord your God, as you have until now. See, there are too many Christians in this room that have been in church all their lives, but have actually stopped holding fast to the Lord. and you've tried in your own strength and your own power, what God started in the spirit, you're trying to master in the flesh. And I believe God is calling you back today to a place of complete dependency on him. Billy Graham said it like this. He said, the closer you grow to Christ, the more sinful you'll feel. The more you'll feel like you need him. The more you feel like you have to depend on him. There's no way you can navigate this life without being close to him. You were never created to live independently. The greatest enemy of your soul is the illusion of independence. You were created to live in complete dependency. And so what is the area of inconsistency in your life? What is it? That's between you and God. But I'm telling you, you will find freedom from addiction. You will find the power and the strength to conquer sin the minute you stop trying to do this on your own and you invite Jesus into it. Say, Jesus, I can't figure this out on my own. I need you. I need your strength to do it. And so I want you to go home today. I want you to spend some meaningful time with the Lord before you go to sleep tonight. And I want you to figure out what's the area of your life where you're the most inconsistent. And I don't care how vain or superficial it seems to be. I want you to invite the Spirit of the living God into that situation. I want you to invite the Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead to strengthen you, to overcome the thing that the devil has had a grip on you for years. Some of you though, it's not an issue of like one little area of your life that you need to surrender. Some of you need to surrender your entire life to Jesus. It's not one area, it's every area. You've been searching the world for answers. You've been searching the world for a cure for this plague inside of you. You look fine on the outside, but on the inside, you know it. And I'm telling you, the one you've been searching for this whole time is Jesus. The one who stretched his arms out on the cross for you so that you could be forgiven and free. The one who resurrected from the grave so you'd never have to fear death. And the one who sent his very Spirit to live in you so that you could conquer everything the devil throws your way. You were meant to surrender everything to him, to say, I'm not going to live one more day trying to walk this thing on my own. I'm going to make the decision today for the rest of my days. And I know, here's the thing, you're going to fail. I'm not up here saying if you'll hold on to this, you ain't never going to fall. You're going to fall. But you know what's amazing? It's so much easier when you fall to get back up when you know you're forgiven. It's so much easier to get back up when you know that the God who created the heavens and the earth is on your side, and he loves you, and he's for you, and your eternity is secure, and his Spirit is with you. Oh man, when you're holding on to Jesus, you might fall, but you're gonna get right back up. Because man, I'm telling you, he is not done with you. He's not done with you. And so some of you need to give your lives to Jesus today. We're gonna celebrate it through baptism. And you need to know that that's what's happening. That when these people get baptized and they get dunked and y'all are in the splash zone and I'm in the splash zone up here. Y'all need to know what's happening is they've made this decision to say yes to Jesus. And so they're already walking with him. But this public declaration is them saying, oh, okay, I am dying to my old self. The old self that used to try to walk this alone. That used to try to walk it in my own strength. I'm dying to that and I'm being raised to a new life. Where anything good that happens is because of Jesus. Where anything that I conquer in my life, it ain't me, it's because of Jesus through me. They're dying to their old selves and they're raising up to a new life with him. And we're gonna celebrate it like crazy. And I believe that some of you maybe didn't come prepared to get baptized today, and you should do it today. You can feel the Spirit of God tugging on your heart right now. And you should always answer that call. When you feel the Holy Spirit tugging on your heart, you should say yes. You should say yes to him. Because I can tell you, there are people in this room who, when they felt that tug to go all in and start following Jesus, and they were nervous and they had doubts, when they said yes, everything changed. It started them on a trajectory that changed their life forever. And I want to give you the chance to do that today as well. We got towels. I know you didn't come on a winter day dressed and ready. We got towels, we got shirts, we got shorts, we got undies, we got hair dryers, we got it all, baby. No excuses, man. If God's calling you to make this big decision today, say yes. Let your answer to Jesus be yes. And never walk another day in your life without clinging to him. Never walk another day in your life alone. Receive his love, receive his grace, and say yes to him. Would you stand with me to your feet? After I get done praying, I'm going to walk out these doors to the side over here. And if you want to get baptized today, I want you to meet me over there. Let's do this. Jesus, we love you. We trust you. We ask you to do something incredible in the room right now as all of heaven celebrates, God, these people who are giving their lives to you, who are going all in for you. Jesus, we thank you that it's happening. Thank you that we're a church where we're seeing lives changed every week. And Jesus, I pray right now what happens in this room looks exactly like what's going on in heaven right now. Celebration over lost sons and daughters coming back to you, Jesus. We love you. We trust you. It's in Jesus' name we all pray together by saying, amen.
Thank you for joining us for this Peak City message today. We're so glad that you were here. If you'd like more information on Peak City Church or information on how to give to the mission here in Colorado Springs, you can visit us at peakcityco.com.